Greetings, my fellow Tangled thinkers, and Tiberius Templeton, your host on Tangled Threads, and I'm here to take you on a journey through the most convoluted and absurd tales you've ever heard. My fat neighbor broke my car by sitting in it and won't pay for the damages. It was a regular Monday morning, and I was headed to work as usual. As I walked out to my car, I saw my neighbor, Jack, sitting on his porch. Jack and I had never been particularly close, but we were friendly enough. He waved at me and asked where I was headed. "I'm just headed to work," I said. "Why do you ask?" "Well, I was hoping I could get a ride with you," Jack said. "My car broke down and I have to get to work too." I hesitated for a moment. I didn't really want to give Jack a ride. I barely knew him, after all. But then I thought about how I would feel if I were in his shoes. If my car broke down and I had no other way to get to work, I would want someone to help me out. "Sure," I said finally. "Hop in." Jack got up from his porch and waddled over to my car. He opened the door and climbed in. But then, something unexpected happened. As Jack sat down in the passenger seat, the car suddenly lurched to the side. I heard a loud cracking sound, and the next thing I knew, the car had fallen to the ground on one side. I was in shock. What had just happened? I got out of the car and looked at the damage. It was clear that Jack's weight had caused the car to break. The frame was completely bent out of shape, and the tire was flat. "Well, this is awkward. I'm so sorry," Jack said. "I didn't realize I was that heavy." I was angry, but I tried to stay calm. "It's okay," I said, "but you're going to have to pay for the damages." Jack nodded. "Of course," he said. "I'll pay for everything." The days went by, and Jack still hadn't paid for the damages. I tried to be patient, but I was getting increasingly frustrated. The repairs were going to cost a lot of money, and I couldn't afford to foot the bill myself. I approached Jack about it, but he just brushed me off. "I'm working on it," he said. "Don't worry, I'll pay you back." But weeks turned into months, and still no payment. Every time I brought it up, Jack would get defensive and change the subject. And then, one day, something even more unexpected happened. I was walking down the street when I overheard Jack talking to one of his friends. "I can't believe my neighbor is being so fatphobic," Jack was saying. "He won't even let me sit in his car without it breaking." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Fatphobic? Was he serious? I confronted Jack about it later that day. "What are you talking about?" I said. "This has nothing to do with your weight. You broke my car." But Jack just rolled his eyes. "Sure," he said. "Blame it on my weight. You're just being a fatphobe." I was livid. Not only had he broken my car, but now he was trying to turn it around on me and make me out to be the bad guy. I knew I had to take action. I took Jack to small claims court and presented my case to the judge. I had witnesses who had seen Jack sitting in my car and causing it to break, and I had receipts for the repairs. The judge ruled in my favor, and Jack was ordered to pay for the damages. It took a while, but eventually he did pay me back. Our relationship has never been the same since then. I still see Jack around the neighborhood, but we don't speak anymore. Yet another very uncomfortable read. How fun. If I learned nothing else today, may it be how you feel about this story. I beg you to tell me in the comments section below. The next tale is waiting to be told. My meathead neighbor keeps slamming his weights when he works out. I had just moved into a new apartment complex and was excited to start my new life. I loved working out and had my own set of weights that I used in my apartment. However, my excitement was short-lived when I realized that my next-door neighbor was a meathead who loved to work out and make a lot of noise. Every morning at 5 a.m., I would wake up to the sound of weights slamming on the ground. It was like he was trying to break the floor. At first, I thought it was just a one-time thing, but it kept happening every day. It was like he was trying to make as much noise as possible. I tried to be friendly and ask him to keep it down, but he just brushed me off and told me that I was just jealous because I didn't lift. I tried to explain that I did lift weights, but I didn't want to disturb my neighbors, but he didn't seem to care. The situation continued for a few weeks, and I started to lose sleep because of it. I even tried to talk to the landlord, but he didn't do anything about it. I was at my wit's end, and I didn't know what to do. Sweet Jesus Almighty, it begins again. Finally, I decided to file a noise complaint with the local authorities. It was the last resort, but I couldn't take it anymore. I filled out the necessary paperwork and submitted it to the appropriate authorities. It was a long and tedious process, but I was determined to put an end to the noise. A few days after submitting the complaint, I got a call from the landlord. He told me that my neighbor had been evicted because of the noise complaints. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to listen to the slamming weights anymore, but I felt a little bad that my neighbor had to leave his apartment. The next day, I went over to his apartment to see if he was okay. He opened the door, and I could tell that he was angry. He accused me of being fat and lazy, and said that I had no right to file a complaint against him. I tried to explain to him that it wasn't about his working out, but the excessive noise he was making, that he wasn't having any of it. He just kept calling me names and insulting me. It was like he couldn't see beyond his own ego. In the end, I decided to just walk away from the situation. I realized that some people just can't be reasoned with. It was a shame that it had to end that way, but I knew that I had done the right thing. I'm pretty sure I just lost brain cells listening to that story. As always, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to hear what you have to say about this story. Please do share in the comments section below. Let's untangle the next story. Crazy gym instructor blames me for her mistake. I'm a regular at my local gym, and I've seen some pretty crazy things happen there. But nothing quite like what happened last week. I was in the middle of my workout, minding my own business, when I heard a loud crash behind me. I turned around to see two guys on the bench press, one of them with a barbell across his face. The other guy was freaking out, trying to lift the barbell off his friend's face. I ran over to help, and we managed to get the barbell off the guy's face. Luckily, he didn't seem to be seriously injured, but he was definitely shaken up. As we were helping him up, the gym instructor, a middle-aged woman with short hair and a fierce look on her face, stormed over to us. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She shouted at us. "Wow, the audacity. We just saved this guy's life." I said, incredulous, "You just messed up my bench press." The other guy chimed in. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to get the right weight and form for each set?" The gym instructor was not impressed. "You guys are just making excuses for your mistake," she said, pointing at me. "You were the one who caused this mess." I was taken aback. "What are you talking about? I was just trying to help. You were in the way," she snapped. "You're lucky that guy wasn't seriously injured, or I would have sued you for everything you're worth." I was stunned. I had never seen someone so angry and irrational before. I tried to reason with her, but it was no use. She was convinced that I had caused the accident and was determined to blame me for everything that had happened. I left the gym that day feeling frustrated and angry. How could someone be so blind to their own mistakes and so quick to blame others? The next day, I went back to the gym and asked to speak with the manager. I explained what had happened and how the gym instructor had blamed me for the accident. The manager listened patiently and then told me that he had heard similar complaints about the gym instructor in the past. Apparently, she had a history of blaming others for her mistakes and creating unnecessary drama. He promised to look into the matter and assured me that the gym would take appropriate action if necessary. I left feeling relieved that someone was finally taking my concerns seriously. A few days later, I received a call from the manager. He informed me that they had decided to terminate the gym instructor's contract due to her behavior towards me and other gym members. I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that I had stood up for myself and helped bring about change. From now on, I could work out in peace without worrying about being blamed for someone else's mistakes. Every day I become more impressed with how ignorant some can be. I'm sure we'd all love to hear what you have to say about this story. So by all means, tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's explore the next story. My boss said he'll fire me if I don't do his job. I never thought I would find myself in a position where my job was on the line, but here I am. It all started a few weeks ago when my boss, Mr. Johnson, started piling on more and more work on my plate. At first, I didn't mind, thinking that it was just a temporary situation, but as the days went on, the workload only increased. I work at a data entry company where my job is to input information into spreadsheets and databases. It's not the most exciting job in the world, but it pays the bills. However, with the sudden surge in work, I found myself struggling to keep up with the demand. One day, while I was working on a particularly difficult task, Mr. Johnson came over to my desk and asked me to complete a task that was completely out of my job description He wanted me to create a report on the company's finances, something that was usually done by him. I politely asked him why he couldn't do it himself, and he gave me a vague answer about being too busy. You people need some new bosses. Sweet Jesus. I tried to explain to him that I wasn't trained to handle such tasks, but he insisted that I do it anyway. I reluctantly agreed, thinking that it was just a one-time thing. But the next day, he gave me another similar task, and then another. I started to get frustrated and stressed out because the work was piling up and I was falling behind. I was staying late every night just to catch up, but it never seemed to be enough. One day, while Mr. Johnson was out of the office, I took a look at his schedule and noticed that he had all these tasks marked as done even though I knew for a fact that he hadn't completed them. I realized then that he had been giving me his work to do all along. I was angry and hurt. I felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I didn't know what to do. So I decided to confront Mr. Johnson about it the next day. When I brought up the issue, he didn't deny it. Instead, he got angry and told me that I had no right to question him. He even threatened to fire me if I didn't do what he asked. That was the last straw for me. I knew that what he was doing was wrong, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. So I decided to take it up with corporate. I wrote an email detailing everything that had happened and sent it to the HR department. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I had to do something. A few days later, I was called into the HR office, where I was informed that Mr. Johnson had been fired. It turned out that I wasn't the only one who had complained about him, and my email was the final straw that broke the camel's back. I felt relieved and vindicated, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel guilty. I had never wanted anyone to lose their job, but I also knew that what Mr. Johnson was doing was wrong. It was a tough situation, but I knew that I had done the right thing. Well, it was fun. For some of us, at least. When you subscribe to our channel, clicking the little bell is crucial. It's the only thing standing between you and a life of complete boredom. Click on the next video if you want to prolong your agony. Or not,